That was gonna be handled already, so I really took a chance on using the money I had saved up for my family.
Yeah. I apologize for that, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Lil Meech might be enjoying fame and attention, but the reality behind the scenes paints a different picture, one full of reckless spending and questionable decisions. Despite the money flowing in, he's been burning through it fast, throwing cash around like it's endless.
Airport. Gun in the bag.
Yeah.
I go to private school. It's not mine, it's his gun. You don't know my dad?
The pressure of being Big Meech's son weighs heavily on him, and it's clear he's trying to replicate the empire his father built from the ground up. But that's where the cracks start to show. Big Meech built his legacy by transforming nothing into a powerful empire, brick by brick, through hustle, discipline, and ruthless street strategy. Lil Meech, however, was raised in comfort, private schools, safer neighborhoods, and financial security already waiting for him. That's why many believe he's trying too hard to mirror an identity that isn't truly his. When he steps out portraying a hardened lifestyle, people see it as an act, not authenticity. And once that perception sets in, it's nearly impossible to shake. Adding to that image problem is the damaging snitch label that's been following him. In street culture, that's one of the hardest stains to remove.
Lil Meech is not a gangster.
Not at all.
He's the son of a gangster. Meech was making money, but he was spending it hand over fist, like you said.
Chrome heart jeans. You got 10 pair of those, do the math. What's that, 100,000?
The talk first erupted back in 2022 when he was detained at an airport after TSA agents discovered a Glock 19 inside a bag connected to him. That single incident turned into a massive scandal, further fueling criticism and leaving many questioning whether Lil Meech has the credibility or resilience to truly carry his father's name forward. From there, things went downhill fast. Instead of standing firm and handling the situation with composure, Lil Meech started switching up his story in ways that raised serious red flags. First, he tried claiming he was a minor, a statement that immediately fell apart since he was already 22 at the time. Then he shifted blame entirely, insisting the firearm wasn't his and that someone else had packed the bag without his knowledge. In the streets, even implying someone else might be responsible is enough to earn the dreaded snitch label, a mark that can follow someone for life even if no one ends up behind bars. Meech's credibility took a serious hit, and the impact was immediate. Many of the street figures he surrounded himself with quickly distanced themselves once the body cam footage from the airport incident surfaced, not wanting to be associated with someone accused of cooperating or shifting blame.
February 13th, the Big Meech home benefit concert. It's gonna be iconic. Too many names to list, but let me salute some of the legends.
Only a small circle remained loyal, and one of those individuals was a longtime associate known as 3 Luck. He stuck by Meech through the controversy, likely hoping the situation would fade or that Meech would eventually redeem himself. But that loyalty would cost him dearly. By mid-2025, their bond publicly exploded when 3 Luck went online and accused Meech of letting him take the fall for something serious. The roots of that accusation stretch back to October 24th, 2024. On that day, 3 Luck was merely tagging along as Meech ran errands, unaware that Meech was already a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. Law enforcement had been watching closely, and when they ran the license plates and recognized who was in the vehicle, they immediately hit the lights and initiated a stop, setting the stage for another major controversy. But Lil Meech didn't pull over right away. Instead, he hesitated, which immediately raised suspicion and made it look like he was preparing to flee.
Because Big Meech is doing this big concert, and I believe he was probably trying to create more interest in it. And so then 50 gets upset about.
Meanwhile, 3 Luck was still completely unaware of the situation, fast asleep in the passenger seat, having no clue about the trouble that was about to unfold. That's when things took a much darker turn. While 3 Luck remained unconscious, Meech allegedly began shifting illegal items off his own body and discreetly stashing them closer to where 3 Luck was sitting, trying to distance himself from the evidence. By the time he finally stopped the vehicle and the police rolled up with sirens blaring and lights flashing, 3 Luck jolted awake, only to find incriminating materials positioned suspiciously near him. In that split second, reality sank in. He was being set up by the very person he thought had his back. officers immediately separated the two and began a thorough search of the car. At first, they found only firearms, and in Florida, that alone typically isn't catastrophic. The state's gun laws are significantly more lenient than places like California or New York. At that moment, it looked like both Meech and 3 Luck might escape with minor consequences. But then came the shocking twist. Out of nowhere, Meech suddenly blurted out that there was more contraband hidden inside the vehicle, even though officers hadn't mentioned anything beyond the guns.
You know Lil Meech is a little punk. Airport. Gun in the bag.
Yeah.
I go to private school. It's not mine, it's his gun.
That single impulsive statement completely flipped the situation on its head. Now that they had probable cause to dig deeper, the officers expanded their search. Sure enough, they uncovered additional illegal items far more serious than the firearms. What had been shaping up to be a manageable legal situation instantly escalated into a major case with potentially severe consequences for everyone involved, especially for 3 Luck, who now appeared deeply implicated in something he had no knowledge of. In the end, 3 Luck was the one who paid the ultimate price. He was hit with the full set of charges and ultimately sentenced to 40 months in prison, despite being unaware of how deep the betrayal actually went. At first, he didn't even realize that Lil Meech had completely sold him out. From his perspective, Meech might have just panicked during the traffic stop and tried to hide the contraband in a desperate move, even though it left him furious and blindsided. Still, 3 Luck likely believed that loyalty would prevail in the end. He thought that by taking the fall and keeping quiet, Meech would step up, support him financially, and make sure he was looked after while behind bars. But that support never came. 3 Luck drained his entire life savings trying to fight the case, hoping Meech's loyalty would show when it mattered most. Instead, there was silence. Not a single dollar, not a single visit, and no real help from Meech or anyone in his camp.
You go to private school, my dad's like Pablo Escobar, I'm innocent, that's who he really is, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these people get caught up and stuck.
Then the reality hit even harder. While in custody, 3 Luck finally got hold of crucial evidence, a section of the police body cam footage where Lil Meech himself could be heard admitting that there was additional illegal material in the car. That clip made everything crystal clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a setup. The betrayal cut deep, and at that point, 3 Luck decided he was done protecting someone who clearly wouldn't protect him. He took to Instagram and completely blew the situation wide open. He posted receipts, leaked audio clips, and even shared a phone call in which Lil Meech directly apologized for how things went down. In that same call, Meech promised that once the BMF series rebooted, he would finally send money and help take care of the situation. But just as those promises were made, industry whispers started swirling, rumors that 50 Cent had no plans to continue the show and that it had already been canceled. That meant even the last hope 3 Luck had of being repaid or supported was slipping away, leaving him with nothing but a prison sentence, a drained bank account, and a betrayal he'd never forget. 3 Luck kept reaching out, hoping that Lil Meech would eventually make good on his word. But every promise Meech made fell flat. Weeks turned into months, and the support 3 Luck was counting on never arrived. Then when the body cam footage surfaced, the same clip showing Meech openly admitting there was more contraband in the car, 3 Luck finally snapped. The betrayal was undeniable, and he decided to air it all out publicly. He exposed everything, the lies, the broken promises, the setup, and let the world see the truth. But as damaging as those revelations were for Lil Meech, the public reaction was telling. Most people weren't even surprised.
Hey, this Cadillac might take off on us. It's not pulling into the parking lot. It's stopped right now, but it's registered to Lil Meech.
Hey, go ahead and pull into the parking.
On the streets, stories of Meech being disloyal had been circulating for years, and it wasn't just about him. His father, Big Meech, carried a similar reputation. Both father and son had been accused of switching sides, burning bridges, and leaving people behind when it suited them. That same perception is a major reason why they're clashing with 50 Cent today. And here's the biggest irony. If anyone had the power to repair Lil Meech's image, it was 50 Cent himself. He wasn't just a producer who cast Meech Jr. in the BMF series. He was a mentor, a guiding force who gave him credibility in 2 worlds, Hollywood and the streets. 50's cosign was more than a job. It was a stamp of legitimacy. It protected Meech from criticism, boosted his name, and gave him the platform to build his own legacy. For a while, 50 Cent played that big brother role perfectly, helping Meech navigate the intense scrutiny that came with being the son of a street legend. But by 2025, that relationship collapsed in dramatic fashion. What had once been a powerful alliance turned into a public feud, with both sides taking shots and the internet watching every move. And the real turning point? It came the day Big Meech finally walked out of prison, a moment that was supposed to symbolize unity and legacy. Father and son reunited, the BMF story coming full circle, and a brand that once ruled the streets now thriving on television. Instead, that reunion marked the beginning of a brutal fallout that no one saw coming. But then came the twist that completely changed everything.
You have your ID on you?
Sir, my ID's in my bag.
In the bag?
Yes, sir, listen, I'm a minor, sir. I have security guards. They left that in my bag, sir. I did not pack my bag.
A move no one, especially 50 Cent, saw coming. Big Meech, fresh out of prison and finally free after years behind bars, decided to align himself with none other than Rick Ross, one of 50's most notorious rivals. Together, they organized a massive welcome home concert, a flashy, high-profile event filled with celebrities, cameras, and headlines. For Ross, it was a business move and a chance to grab more clout, but for 50, it was the ultimate betrayal. From his perspective, he had been the one holding the Meech legacy together during the darkest years. He kept the BMF story alive in the culture, turned it into a global TV phenomenon, and put Lil Meech in position to build a career that would outlive the street legend's past. He didn't just offer opportunities, he invested money, influence, and credibility into the Flenory name. So watching Big Meech publicly link with a man who had been one of his fiercest enemies felt like a slap in the face. And when 50 Cent feels played, he doesn't stay quiet, he goes on the offensive. He reached for his sharpest weapon, the internet. Within hours, 50 was on Instagram launching a relentless wave of shots, aimed at both Big Meech and Lil Meech. One of the most brutal posts featured a viral photo of a rat, captioned with a savage twist on Rick Ross's iconic lyric, "I think I'm Big Meech." It was a clear public accusation, a thinly veiled way of calling Big Meech a snitch, but 50 didn't stop there. He turned the heat up on Lil Meech too, pulling back the curtain on what he claimed was behind-the-scenes chaos. According to 50, Lil Meech was showing up to sets high, acting unprofessional, and even had to be sent to rehab in the middle of filming. And to make his point hit harder, 50 brought receipts. He posted a photo of Lil Meech slumped in a wheelchair, a humiliating image meant to destroy his credibility and show the world how far he had fallen. It wasn't just pettiness, it was a message, one that said 50 felt betrayed after everything he'd done to help the Flenory family rise again. And in typical 50 Cent fashion, he made sure that message echoed across the entire industry. 50 Cent turned the humiliation up another level by layering Amy Winehouse's hit Rehab over the clip of Lil Meech and pairing it with a savage caption, "Damn, this is bad. You believe me now?" The internet exploded with reactions, and the narrative quickly shifted from speculation to full-blown ridicule. But instead of staying quiet, Meech tried to brush it all off in a TMZ interview, saying, "Where I'm from, everybody needs rehab." That move backfired instantly. 50 reposted the clip with a mocking translation implying that Meech was still trying to play tough even while being exposed. He wrote, "He must not have heard them say," followed by a caption clowning Meech for overcompensating with a gangster persona that clearly wasn't adding up anymore. At this point, the image Meech had been trying to project, that of a hardened street figure carrying the BMF legacy, was starting to crumble under the weight of public embarrassment. With the pressure mounting and the internet turning against him, Lil Meech finally decided to reach out behind the scenes. Leaked text messages showed a completely different side of him, not the brash, confident figure fans were used to, but someone sounding hurt, blindsided, and desperate to salvage the relationship. In those messages, Meech insisted he had never switched up, writing, "I've only ever shown you love, I never betrayed you. This internet stuff is throwing me off, you know who I am in real life." He even tried to prove his loyalty by throwing subtle shade at Rick Ross, saying, "F Ross, but he gave my dad some bread so he could pay his bills until next season." It was a clear attempt to distance himself from the Ross connection and show 50 that he was still on his side. But 50 wasn't buying it, and he definitely wasn't showing mercy. Instead of keeping those messages private, he blasted them out on Instagram for the world to see. The caption was laced with sarcasm, ridiculing Meech's attempts to reconcile and hinting that the BMF series might be coming to an end. And then came the final blow. 50 signed off with a cold message that left no room for doubt. "I'm done with the Meech business." With that single line, 50 Cent publicly severed ties, signaling the collapse of a partnership that had once been built on loyalty, legacy, and mutual gain. And for Lil Meech, it was more than just a fallout. It was the beginning of a steep fall from grace. That moment marked the final nail in the coffin for Lil Meech's reputation. From that point forward, both the industry and the streets started viewing him through a completely different lens. When someone like 50 Cent, a figure long respected for his authenticity, loyalty, and no-nonsense approach, publicly labels you fake, ungrateful, and disloyal, that stigma doesn't just fade away. It sticks and reshapes how people talk about you, how they work with you, and whether they trust you. In hip-hop, feuding with rivals is part of the culture and can even boost a career, but being branded as disloyal to the man who gave you your first major opportunity, that's often career suicide. And just when it looked like things couldn't spiral any further, Lil Meech's next moves made the situation dramatically worse. Instead of staying quiet and repairing relationships behind the scenes, he doubled down on rebellion. He was soon spotted in Miami, living it up and partying with two of 50 Cent's most notorious rivals, Rick Ross and Floyd Mayweather. It wasn't just a casual appearance either, it was a loud, deliberate message. Meech then poured gasoline on the fire by posting a picture with them online, captioned, "Real Power." The jab wasn't subtle, it was a direct shot at 50's iconic Power TV franchise, the very project that helped launch Meech's acting career and build his name in entertainment. His team scrambled to spin the narrative, insisting that Meech was simply unbothered and focused on forging new ventures without relying on 50 Cent's platform. They tried to frame it as a young artist branching out and carving his own lane, but by then, the public perception was already set in stone. Most saw it as confirmation of exactly what 50 had been saying all along, that when pressure hits, Lil Meech flips sides fast and loyalty doesn't mean much. With that, the door to 50's support slammed shut. The mentorship that once protected Meech vanished. Fans who had rallied behind his rise began turning away. And the same people who once hailed him as the heir to Big Meech's legendary legacy now dismissed him as a privileged kid who squandered his shot. To many observers, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal against the one person who put him on the map, and it may be the hardest stain on his reputation to ever wash off. He even went as far as posting an image of a rat with the caption, "They called me Big Meech," a not-so-subtle jab that backfired badly. In the world Lil Meech is so desperate to be accepted by, three principles matter more than anything else: loyalty, respect, and authenticity. Without those foundational pillars, all someone truly has is a recognizable name. And even that can lose its power once the streets stop believing in it. And that's exactly the problem Meech now faces. His credibility, once buoyed by legacy, has been steadily eroding with every misstep. But the damage didn't end with his public fallout with 50 Cent or the betrayal scandal involving 3 Luck. Lil Meech's resume is now crowded with smaller controversies that, while minor on their own, collectively form a damaging pattern. These incidents paint a picture of someone struggling to hold it all together. Another viral headline here, another embarrassing moment there, each one reinforcing the narrative that he's in over his head and not ready to live up to the name he carries. One incident that still follows him occurred back in 2022 when he was arrested in Miami on grand theft and fraud charges tied to an extravagant watch. And not just any watch, we're talking about a $250,000 Richard Mille. According to police reports, Meech allegedly walked into a luxury jeweler, handed over a Rolex as collateral, and walked out with the Richard Mille still owing nearly $200,000. Instead of settling the debt, he reportedly attempted to flip that same high-end watch at another store, presenting it as his own property. The stunt was reckless and damaging. It didn't just raise legal problems, it screamed desperation and greed. The internet quickly pounced on the story, with headlines branding him as a scammer rather than a rising star. Even though the charges were ultimately dropped, the incident left a permanent blemish on his public image. Overnight, the conversation shifted from his acting skills and potential to his alleged shady behavior. Instead of radiating the poised, controlled energy of a boss, the watch fiasco made him look like someone desperate to flex wealth and power he hadn't truly earned. And in a culture where reputation is currency, that kind of stain doesn't wash off easily. Combined with the other scandals shadowing his name, it's another example of how Lil Meech's attempts to project strength and legacy keep backfiring. each one pushing him further away from the respect he's been chasing. The fraud accusations, the scandals, the endless memes, and the constant stream of online drama all connect into one clear narrative. Lil Meech isn't being viewed as focused, strategic, or grounded. Instead, the growing perception is of someone reckless, immature, and leaning too heavily on his father's empire without proving he's earned the same respect. And in hip-hop, especially among the veterans, the OGs, and those who lived that street reality, authenticity isn't optional, it's the law. Big Meech built his empire from the ground up, brick by brick, with real risks, real consequences, and real power moves. That's why his name still echoes in the culture decades later. When those same people look at Lil Meech, they're not criticizing him for having a better life, going to private schools, or being born into privilege. The criticism is about the performance, the attempt to act like he lived that same struggle when he didn't. As one fan put it bluntly, 50 didn't clown him for going to private school, he clowned him for pretending he didn't. That single statement captures the heart of the problem. Authenticity isn't something you can fake, no matter how many stories you tell or images you project. You can't talk about walking through fire if you never felt the heat. And when a name like Meech carries so much weight in the streets, the microscope only gets sharper. So when Lil Meech is constantly caught in clout-chasing moments, petty scandals, social media headlines, and internet jokes, all while portraying himself as something he's not, the reaction isn't respect, it's laughter, not applause, but mockery. And in a culture that values realness above all else, that might be the hardest stain to erase. Make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because this story and the legacy tied to it is still unfolding.